The board will now come to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyers, Alderwoman Flowers, Alderman Bosley, Alderman Moore, Alderwoman Hubbard, Alderwoman Ingracia, Alderwoman Young, Alderman Conway, Alderman Ortman, Alderman Vollmer, Alderman Villa, Alderman Arnowitz, Alderwoman Howard, Alderwoman Florida, Alderwoman Behringer, Alderman Rhodey, Alderman Kennedy, Alderwoman Davis, Alderman Schmid, Alderman French, Alderman Boyd, Alderman Vaccaro, Alderman Ogilvie, Alderman Cone, Alderman Williamson, Alderman Carter, Alderwoman Cruzen, President Reed,
Here.
Alderman Conway, Alderman Ortman, Alderman Vollmer, Alderman Rhodey, Alderwoman Davis, Alderman French, Alderman Ogilvie, Alderman Carter, Alderwoman Cruzen, 19 present.
A quorum being present, we will be led today in prayer by Reverend Wes Mullins from Metropolitan Community Church of Greater St. Louis. Tell you, Reverend, I had an opportunity to attend his installation and hear his first sermon in the city of St. Louis, and it was just magnificent. I think this young man's going to do a lot of great things, not just for St. Louis City, but our entire region. He brings a wealth of experience with him, and he has a true heart and true passion for the people. So join me in welcoming Reverend Wes Mullins.
Good morning. I want to first say a word of thanks to President Reed for the invitation to be with you this morning and to pray with you. As we begin this morning, I wanted to offer a brief meditation on the events of the last 48 hours or so with the shootings that occurred in our neighboring state in Kansas and Overland Park. I think it's just another way that we need to be reminded as leaders in our community of our responsibility to care for those that Jesus called the least of these among us, but those who are labeled or oppressed in various different ways. This week also, I don't know if you're aware, is also the anniversary week of the Columbine shootings and of the Virginia Tech shootings. So I think it's an appropriate time for us to just pause and take a moment to remember all of that loss of life. As leaders, we do have a responsibility for those. I wanted to lift up one other thing to you this morning. That's that at Maryville University, right here in our own state, our own city, right now they have an art exhibit up about 8 different transgender heroes from the Civil War. They expect over 800 women fought as men through the Civil War, and many of them lived as men after that. And what surprised me the most is that 2 of them were given full military funerals by Congress full well knowing that they were transgender heroes in 1864. When I learned that, I couldn't believe that all that has happened between now and then, and yet they were willing to do that then. And what it made me want to say to you today is, can we find ways to acknowledge the dignity of the one person? I feel like it wouldn't have happened today because there's a 24-hour news cycle that reports everything that happens, and they would have had to be too worried about how that vote to give those people that dignity would be played in the electorate. But can we find a way to find people's humanity and care more about that individual humanity than about the votes? That's harder for you than it is for me as a pastor, but that's my challenge to you. Would you pray with me this morning? God, we do thank you this morning for the responsibility and the privilege that you've given each one of us, especially those who sit before me, to be leaders in this community. We do pray that you would help us all to lead with wisdom in the places where you have put us in the city. We pray that you would help us to remember our responsibility not only for the majority, but for the minority, for those who are oppressed, for those who are impoverished, for those who are in most need of people like us who will remember them and ensure that while everyone else is cared for, they are as well. We carry this responsibility to the best of our ability. Pray for your help, and we thank you for the gift of being in this place. We do pray all these things through your many names, all the names by which the people of faith all around the world call you. Amen.
Reverend West, before you leave, also want to present you with our official pen from the Board of Aldermen as you begin your journey and as you begin your works in St. Louis and the surrounding community. So I want to offer you this pen also. Let's give the Reverend a round of applause. Thank you for Okay, it's too late. Introduction, round of guests, Alderman from the 26th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. My honored guest today will be Mr. Ken Franklin from the Election Board of the City of St. Louis. Thank you.
Alderman from the 12th.
President, members of the board, again, we have Brian Sullivan, also from the Election Board. I'd like to welcome him as my guest today.
Alderman from the 23rd.
Mr. President, members of the board, I'd like to have Maureen from the Realtors, Mark and Jeff from the Carpenters, Al from the Firefighters, 33, Gina from Laclede Gas, and I told Sam Moore yesterday I'm going to welcome him back as my special guest. He's been out sick like we've known from the car accident, and welcome back, Sam.
Yeah. Alderman from the 16th.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. I would like to have as my special guest today Anthony Lancia with AGC and David Holmes with Plumbers and Pipe Fitters.
Any further introductions? Alderman from the 7th, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the board, I move that we appoint David Sweeney as the temporary clerk and legal counsel of the board.
Been moved by the Alderman from the 7th, seconded by the Alderman from the 25th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
I also move that we appoint Donna Evans Booker as the temporary assistant clerk.
Second. Moved by the Alderman from the 7th, seconded by the Alderman from the 25th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Alderman from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. I'd like to have as my special guest today, Joe Rhodey, Alderman Joe Rhodey.
All right, excellent. Welcome, Joe. Alderman from the, any further introductions? Alderman from the 17th, you're recognized.
Well, I'm honored to be a special guest today. Mr. President, I move that we adopt resolution number 1 concerning the rules of the Board of Aldermen for the 2014-15 session.
Moved by the Alderman from the 17th, seconded by the Alderman from the 25th. All in favor signify by, well, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Flowers. Alderman Bosley. Alderman Moore. Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderwoman Ingracia. Alderwoman Young. Alderman Conway. Alderman Ortman. Alderman Vollmer. Alderman Villa. Alderman Arnowitz. Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Florida. Alderwoman Behringer. Alderman Rhodey. Alderman Kennedy. Alderwoman Davis. Alderman Schmidt. Alderman French. Alderman Boyd. Alderman Vaccaro. Alderman Ogilvie. Alderman Cone. Alderman Williamson. Alderman Carter. Alderwoman Cruzen. President Reed.
Aye.
Alderman Rhodey. Alderwoman Davis. Alderman Boyd. Alderman Ogilvie. Alderman Carter. 24 aye votes.
By your vote, you sustain the motion. Alderman from the 17th and adopted the rules for 2014-2015 session. Alderman from the 18th, you recognize.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, I move for adoption of resolution number 2 related to the staff of the Board of Aldermen
It's been
and request previous roll.
Okay, it's been moved by the Alderman from the 17th, seconded by the Alderman from the 25th. There's been a request for previous roll. Hearing no objection, motion carries. We will dispense with line item 7 through 11. First reading of board bills.
Board Bill number 2, sponsored by President Reed, an ordinance establishing a bond oversight committee to help ensure efficiency, equity, timeliness, and accountability in the expenditure of proceeds from any general obligation bonds issued in the city after the effective date of this ordinance. Board Bill number 3, sponsored by Alderwoman Tyus, an ordinance pertaining to the non-emergency removal of vehicles and the removal of vehicles having one or more unpaid parking violations for parking in a designated parking space for handicap, amending Section 1 of Ordinance 68299, and enacting in lieu thereof a new section pertaining to the same subject matter and containing a severability clause and an emergency clause. Board Bill number 4, sponsored by Alderwoman Cruzen, an ordinance extending paragraph G of Section 2 of Ordinance 63483 and extended by Ordinance 66317, and in lieu thereof, a new paragraph is enacted extending the period of time during which the Washington Place Special Business District shall be permitted to collect the tax within the boundaries of the district therein established and containing an effectiveness and emergency clauses. Board Bill number 5, sponsored by Alderwoman Cruzen, an ordinance submitting to the qualified voters residing in the Washington Place Special Business District as designated in Ordinance 63483, a proposal to continue the levy of tax on real estate located in the said district for 10 years, submitting said proposal to the voters of said district at the general election on August the 5th, 2014, and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill number 6, sponsored by Alderwoman Cruzen, an ordinance extending paragraph G of Section 2 of Ordinance 63479, extended by Ordinance 66318, and in lieu thereof, a new paragraph is enacted extending the period of time during which the Waterman Lake Special Business District shall be permitted to collect the tax within the boundaries of the district therein established and containing effectiveness and emergency clauses. Board Bill number 7, sponsored by Alderwoman Cruzen, and ordinance submitting to the qualified voters residing in the Waterman Lake Special Business District as designated in Ordinance 63479, proposal to continue the levy of a tax on a real estate property located in said district for 10 years, submitting said proposal to the voters of said district at the general election on August the 5th, 2014, and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill number 8, sponsored by Alderwoman Cruzen, an ordinance extending paragraph G of Section 2 of Ordinance 63481, extended by Ordinance 66316, and in lieu thereof, a new paragraph is enacted extending the period of time during which the Westminster Lake Special Business District shall be permitted to collect tax within the boundaries of the district therein established and containing an effectiveness and emergency clauses. Board Bill number 9, sponsored by Alderwoman Cruzen, an ordinance submitting to the qualified voters residing in the Westminster Lake Special Business District as designated in Ordinance 63481, a proposal to continue the levy of tax on the real property located in said district for 10 years, submitting said proposal to the voters of the said district at the general election on August the 5th, 2014, and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill number 10, sponsored by Alderwoman Behringer, and ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission to change the zoning of property from A, single-family dwelling district, and the F, neighborhood commercial district, to the F, neighborhood commercial district only in City Block 6316 for properties on Hampton Avenue containing an emergency clause. Board Bill number 11, sponsored by Alderwoman Ingracia, and ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission to change the zoning of property from J, industrial district, to the F, neighborhood commercial district in City Blocks 2268 and 2276.04 for properties on McKay Place, Missouri, and Shoto, and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill number 12, sponsored by President Reed, an ordinance providing for and directing the submission to the qualified voters, to the qualified electors of the city of St. Louis at a special bond election to be held at the time of the state primary election in said city on the 5th day of August 2014 for a proposal for incurring indebtedness and issuing general obligation bonds of said city and evidence thereof in an aggregate amount not to exceed $195 million upon the assent to the said proposals, respectively, of 4/7 of the qualified voters of the said city voting thereon, and containing an emergency clause. That's the extent of first reading.
Reference to committee.
To the Streets Committee, Board Bill number 3, to the Housing Committee, Board Bills 10 and 11, and to the Ways and Means Committee, Board Bills 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 12. That's the extent of reference to committees.
We will dispense with line items 14 through 21. First reading resolutions. Resolutions number 1 and 2 have already been adopted.
Resolution number 3, sponsored by President Reed and Alderman Bosley. The Board of Aldermen authorizes and directs the clerk of the board to prepare the index to the journal of the board for the 2004.
We have some order.
For the 2014-2015 session, and that the journal be prepared in both a bound and printed format and an electronic format in numbers to be determined by the clerk in an event to exceed 15 copies total.
Alderman from the 3rd, you're recognized on resolution number 3. Alderman from the 3rd, you're recognized on resolution number 3.
Mr. President, I move for adoption of resolution number 3.
Moved by the Alderman from the 3rd. Entertain a second on that motion. Seconded by the Alderman from the 4th. Any discussion? Is there a request for previous roll? It's been a thank you. Thank you. Hearing no objection, motion carries.
Resolution number 4.
I think she took a pass on it. We'll get on the next one. Go ahead.
Resolution number 4, sponsored by President Reed and Alderman Conway. The Board of Aldermen hereby authorizes a continued payment to each alderman and the President of the Board of Aldermen of an expense allowance in the amount of $350 and the issuance of the equivalent of 200 United States postage stamps per month of such denomination required to mail a standard first-class business letter as a periodic payment to each alderman.
Alderman from the 8th, you're recognized on the first reading of resolution number 4.
Mr. President, members of the board, I would move for adoption of resolution number 4.
Moved by the Alderman from the 8th, seconded by the Alderman from the 15th. Any discussion?
I'd request a roll call.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Flowers. Alderman Bosley. Alderman Moore. Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderwoman Ingracia. Alderwoman Young. Alderman Conway. Alderman Ortman. Alderman Vollmer. Alderman Villa. Alderman Arnowitz. Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Florida. Alderwoman Behringer. Alderman Rhodey. Alderman Kennedy. Alderwoman Davis. Alderman Schmidt. Alderman French. Alderman Boyd. Alderman Vaccaro. Alderman Ogilvie. Alderman Cone. Alderman Williamson. Alderman Carter. Alderwoman Cruzen. President Reed. Alderwoman Young. Alderwoman Behringer. Alderman Ogilvie. Alderman Carter. 24 aye votes, 1 no vote.
By your vote, you sustain the motion, Alderman from the 8th, and pass resolution number 4.
That's the extent of first reading of resolutions.
We'll dispense with line items 23, miscellaneous unfinished business.
We have none.
Announcements?
There are no meetings scheduled for next week. The next meeting is April the 25th, full board meeting, 10 a.m. in the chambers. That's the extent of my announcements.
Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Alderman from 26.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. April 24th, Thursday, we'll be having our award meeting held at Union Memorial Church at 6:30. That's 1141 Belt. We have coming as our guest speakers will be Mr. Joe Edwards, who will be talking about the new trolley that will be erected on Delmore. So we welcome and encourage all our constituents and residents to come out to get the information about the new trolley. Thank you.
All right, any further announcements? Any further announcements? I've also requested that the budget director give a capital needs presentation to the full board of aldermen next week. This is in reference to the GO bond that the city does every 10 to 15 years, and I think it's important that each member of the Board of Aldermen understand those capital needs and why the departments put the requests in that they have put in. So that'll be next week. You'll get more information about that. We've also scheduled three community forums across the city to talk about the GO bond and to solicit information from the residents to see what they would like to see in this year's bond that we would send out to the voters. We expect it to, if it passes the Board of Aldermen, to be on the November ballot. I don't think that will make the August ballot, but it'll possibly make the November ballot. But stay tuned. We got it about 2 weeks ago. Last week, we decided to start having these community forums, so we put it out, and we would love it if as many of the aldermen can come as possible, because we need some team leads to sit and work with the different residents as they begin to talk about and formulate ideas, for what they'd like to see within a GO bond. All right, so thank you. Alderwoman from the 19th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I wanted to make sure that I gave some accolades to Carla and Miguel Alexander. This husband and wife has done a yeoman's job on bringing a historic site back to life. Tilly's Corners will be recognized this Saturday afternoon coming up. And I don't know how many people knew in the Jeff Vanderloo neighborhood, there was a woman-owned business, a confectionery on the corner of Sheridan and Garrison, and Miss Lily Pearson owned that store for 40 years. She opened it in the 20s, and when she became older and ill, they tried to maintain the store, and then it was closed. The building collapsed in the bad storm that we had year before last, and it was in the process of becoming a historic landmark. We really can't take any credit for this other than the red tape that we took them through, because they actually did the lead work. They encouraged the National Historic Society to approve this. They took it upon themselves to find donors. They convinced E.M. Harris Construction Company to actually come out and erect a new monument that will reflect and will show some of the history. She has saved a lot of things. This is the kind of thing that we need more of by those who still care about this city. So even though I'm the alderperson for that area, and even though I did all my part as far as letters of support and all that, I give all credit to Carla and her husband because it wouldn't have been done. I asked you if you are available, and we have sent the notice out through the city community website that if you are available to come by and congratulate them. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Alderman from the 17th, you recognize on the motion to excuse.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, I move that we excuse the aldermen from the 24th and 27th for their necessary absences.
Moved by the Alderman from the 17th, seconded by the Alderman from the 25th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Alderman from the 17th, you recognize on the motion to adjourn.
Yes, Mr. President, I move that we adjourn this Board of Aldermen until Friday, April the 25th.
Moved by the Alderman from the 17th, seconded by the Alderman from the 12th. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We stand adjourned.